everybody. We're back again. Hopefully we'll be together soon. Today we're going to go over brush knee left. And I'm going to try and point out some of the problem areas that we see in this. Brush knee left or right is a pretty complicated posture. It has a lot of detail, and the timing is so important as it is on every posture, but it's just a lot of change in energy directions and so forth. So I'm going to demonstrate, and we go from white crane displays its wings, and this is in the 16 and the 103, either one. So from here to brush knee left. And from the side, footwork looks very simple on this. So we start empty ball of foot stance from white crane with 30% of the weight in the front and 70% in the back, and our hips and shoulders are going to be square to the front. Anytime it's an empty ball of foot stance, we have hips and shoulders square. Empty heel stance, hips and shoulders open to the corner. This in the 16 posture is our first standard bow stance. So when we finish, we are going to be in a bow stance, feet shoulder width apart, back foot at 45 degrees relative to the front foot, or we would say corner sometimes. And because it's a standard bow stance, there is a tilt, or I like to say a pivot in the body. So we don't finish this as an upright. Single whip is an upright bow stance, and it has different characteristics for the upper body. But here, we have to have a straight line from the top of our head to our heels. And that's going to come from that pivot that we'll get into. So the movement from end of one end to the other doesn't look that great or that big of a difference. But it's how you get there. It's the transition in every posture, but this one has a very complicated transition. So we'll first work just a little bit on lower body, but the timing here is going to be more towards the upper body, coordinating lower to the upper than it is in other postures. It's all together in one, but there's more upper body movement in this posture. So from here, I am to the front. This is going to be a very slow turn or swing. So I'm going to be turning, let me get my stick. From here, I am going to be making a swing or a turn to the right. And I do that by pushing forward a little bit on the left side of my body, back a little bit on the right side, rotating around my center. So it's going to be a very gradual turn, getting situated, slight turn back at the hips if you need it, and then a step to the side. And then continue this swing back and a pivot forward. So there is a lot of turning here. And the timing has to match this body turn. We don't want to be here, turn, down, step, swing. So it's a continuous movement. So we want to incorporate that timing and coordination on this. So we have to use our lower body to move our feet. And the biggest problem that I see watching students, it's beginners, but even when you've been doing it a while, we can fall back into this. When we are doing brush knee, and I turn to the side, people have a tendency to step forward. Let me do it from the side. And you are going to lose your body shape stepping forward too much. a natural tendency, I guess you would say, and especially really beginners tend to lean back to be able to put that foot out. So that's our first big problem. What I like to do, and we teach these rotations like this in the hip. So I'm moving from the hip, just like we would do basically in wave hands like clouds when we step out. It's going to be a rotation like this, in that one hip, so that when I get my body turned, I am rotating out to step to the side, so that when I do that and I come back, I am shoulder width apart. But if I do this and I lean that upper body and go back, that foot goes out. So then I come back and I'm no longer shoulder width apart. So I see a lot of people losing shoulder width apart going into brush knee. It doesn't happen unless you put the swing in, but you can't get the coordination correct unless you're turning through your middle body. So if you just did this, people will get shoulder width apart. It's when you add this turn to that corner that people will go too far forward. So be very aware of that and see if we can help to make that a little smoother. And it's much more comfortable if you can think of going out enough, then that turn and that pivot of the upper body works much better. So now we're going to try and add our arms with it and a little coordination. So when we are here, I'm going to do the arms separately, and then there is movement together. When we are here, and we're going to start our swing, right arm, you're going to rotate. And this is the whole arm outward from the body. So ultimately, again, we want it center of the body and waist, but these rotations that we've been working on, I need to have that extended feeling in my armpit, or that open feeling. Rotate, shoulder, elbow, wrist, so that the arm goes almost in a spiral. I happen to love this move. When it finishes, you have the back of the palm and the back of the forearm square. Your body, or at least with me, has already turned slightly. So you have to be careful that you don't turn the arm to the corner. So it is here. I don't see that in a lot of other people. It's probably I personally tend to have. But when we do this, it's very easy to lose. And I don't know if I can get a good angle on this. But if I'm here, this is open, and you can feel it. When I rotate, and especially if I turn my body, that closes. So that's a point that I want you to be aware of, because if you have closed, this next movement gets very awkward. But at the same time that we are doing this rotation, we have to have a rotation through the left arm. And again, you need an extension to be able to accomplish this with the inner body. So we're going to rotate and come up. This is not come up, rotate, and go over. You are connecting with an opponent to do a deflect. So from here it has to rotate up, connecting into somebody's arm to then deflect them down. And we want to make sure we get that rotation. That's very easy to leave out because you're very focused on the right arm, but they will go together. So as you see here, together. And this should be accomplished as one movement, ultimately. I didn't have any bent in. Ultimately through the chest and back. So you need that extension, that bow across the back. Didn't do that right. Coming up. So this is going to stay to the front, and this is going to rotate and connect in. And it has to be together. Weight shift hasn't really started to change yet. So it is, the body may start its swing slightly, just slightly, as these rotations begin. And then the next step is right arm is going to rotate down. And this is not let it drop and come up. This has, you should feel want from here, open up here, big inner rotation, up and in. And I try not to do too much of a swing there because we have to coordinate that with the swing to get our hand in the position we want it to be. So as this one makes, from here, makes this big rotation down, this arm finishes that coming up and is going to start to pivot and come over and press down. You're not moving the elbow so much here as a pivot on it. So this would be my point, this is my lever, and I'm coming down and I'm pressing downward. So that you imagine a press or a feeling in here. So that there is a connection between the two. So from here, let's try this together. I'll do it facing you. From here, rotate, and then circling, pushing, 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 until the hands are almost up. You're going to keep that push going, but that's just for this point. I have to coordinate the arms with this swing. So I'm coming around, and I have to be turned, my hips and my shoulders, to this corner, and then the arm comes out, the right arm especially here, comes out 45 degrees from my shoulder. That makes that 90 degrees from the front. So again, this is mostly beginners, we don't want to be here and go to the corner. We can make 90 degrees with our arm, but we're disconnected up here. So if you cannot get your swing fully to corner, then you get your swing as far as you can and add 45. So if it's not quite 90 degrees from the front or back corner, that's okay. That is preferred, rather than have you open to get it back there. And again, the timing all has to go together. So let's practice this, working on getting that swing to the corner, and it finishes as those arms come up. So it's very close, and actually it's going to kind of start going back before they come up, but it's very, I don't want you to turn here, rotate and go there. All one movement. So from here, again, feeling that you're actually moving your arms, not letting it drop or pulling with the hand. If I'm on this side and I pull with the hand, see my elbow didn't stay on a point, so I lose energy in that pivot on the elbow into the press. But if I can hold it here and come down, rotating through here, but that elbow kind of stays in space where it is, I have more power than if I do this. There's just not as much energy there. So I like to focus on keeping that down and coming over. And this is going to come down and stop. Palm is set at chest level or between chest and shoulder. It's up about here. We don't want to end down here. And then the right arm is going to come up and set with the edge towards that back corner. And this is going to be an extension through the forearm, extending a little more on this side to push that palm up. So this coordination of the arms is a little more difficult than what we've encountered so far in this form. So let's practice. I'm going to turn them back to you. So from white crane, spreads its wings, to brush knee left. Arms up. Do that again. Arms up. As the arms come up, that's where we add our step. So sometimes I like to practice without doing the step and just focus on feeling those rotations, and then I can integrate it. But next we want to rotate in this hip and step to the side as the arms finish. So from here, this is coordinated. Your arms, your swing, your weight shift, which is minor, but it has to come back pushing through that front leg, and that leg rotation. So begin. Out. And this is the heel down. Ball isn't quite touching yet, but it will very quickly. So let's practice that together. This is the timing. So from here, coordinating those arms and the swing and getting the timing so everything comes to that point together. And again. And a problem I'm having today, which I have other times, it's sometimes harder to keep your quad open when, for me at least, when I'm on an empty ball of foot stance. So need to be aware that this stays open. And when I'm coming around here and I'm going to step, I'm going to push in both directions. So I'm going to push against this side to step out so that I don't have to use my upper body to counterbalance it. So that I'm pushing through the quad, always, both feet, I'm pushing through the quad. But as I step, I'm pushing against that right leg to make that step and stay upright. We don't want to, and it's very similar and could be part of the problem where people go forward, is that if you don't push against that and you step out, you're going to lean up here. And that makes your foot go forward more than to the side. So be very conscious of that. And again, rounded quad makes this easier, and that energy, that pushing against one to the other. Now, I've been taking some of the online classes through the Young Family. I don't know if any of you have. I've been putting them up on the Facebook page. I was doing one with, I still am, have the last one today with Nancy Lucerna. And I liked her explanation for the tension, for the roundness, the energy feeling in the legs. And she was talking about magnets. So if you put opposite poles of a magnet facing each other, they're going to attract and connect. But if you turn same poles, like poles, there is a feeling, it's a resistance, right, between the two. So that is kind of what we want with our legs as we're shifting our weight. So that it's not, weight goes from here to here, goes there, goes there. There is an energy between the two, a resistance, a push into both feet in order to exchange the weight. Also has to be there when you step. And we just started covering this in my evening classes. So when I come back here, I am pushing, I'm feeling that resistance against this leg as I rotate in this hip to step out. So that it is not hold and get tight. This allows you to keep your hips a little more relaxed and comfortable if you're pushing back. Again, two energies, a yin and a yang. So I'm pushing this way as much as I push that way, right? To keep our structure, our body shape. Okay, so now from our arms, we have come from here into the corner and up and stepped. Now, this is going to have a little weight shift and a little swing as those arms come around and you put the foot down. A little weight shift. You need to kind of reserve that weight shift to finish this posture because we want that to end with the body movement. But what we have sometimes when we get here with the arms, some issues that I see. And again, sometimes this is beginners. They come in to here and go out. You don't have enough distance here. If your opponent is close to you, you're already at the opponent before you can get your push going. So on the right arm, if I am here and I am up, I need to bring this in. It needs to start from my chest. May not be touching, but it's close to here so that I have distance when I go out. Another problem we have is people tend to close off up here at that point. So if I am here, let me kind of do it at an angle. If I am here and I come down, and I can keep it open because that is a big rotation away from the body, but when I'm bringing it in and I'm kind of pivoting on that elbow, it's very easy to close right here and to lose the connection. So we need to maintain an opening here, of open feeling, and it's harder when you have brought that elbow in like this to stay rounded. It still has a rounded feeling. So it is not out here and in like this. It has to come in a rounded motion. There's a little bit of a curve out, not much, but it's mostly that it's not a straight line in, it rotates in. And you need to keep the elbow to the side. Sometimes people will bring it back. We've kind of gotten away from that one. I've seen a lot of improvement there. But on this one, we need to keep it out and still have a rounded feeling here, so we have a rounded feeling opening up here. Because this next one, we have to be able to turn with that chest and back, and you can't do that if you're all closed up. So I'll come up to here, and I'm going to come in fully to the chest, and my palm is set. It's not set up, it's at a slight angle. My elbow has to be below my wrist here. It can't be even with my wrist. Some postures like this one, it can be very close when I bring my left arm over. This one, it has to be down in order to get this next movement. If it's like this, it's going to be very awkward. So it's down, and then I'm going to rotate in that chest and back and bring that elbow in as I go out. So there is a curve, a drilling into an opponent. It doesn't go here. That doesn't have the energy against somebody. Or if you're just pushing something. Let me show that again. So I'm here, or rotating in to somebody. Can you see that movement through the upper body? It is not here and out. That's why your brain likes to move, leading with the hands. So we need that rotation here to get that energy through the arm to bring it out, and you connect with the side of the palm. And it should finish from here, straight out from the shoulder. Sometimes, because the strike, if you were talking and you were demonstrating with an opponent, the strike comes to an opponent's middle point. But you will not be in a straight line or a box with your opponent because you stepped over. So my shoulder is then lined up with the contact point. So I don't have to come across like this. So it is straight out from the shoulder. That is another thing that we tend to see, and it combines with what we're going to go into a little bit later about going too far. So people will turn their whole body too far and then bring the hand in, and there's a big twist in the back. Very obvious to see. So the right arm, just the right arm. Rotate, coming down, coming back, and up, and in, over, and out. We have to do that and keep that shoulder soft, keep it down. So I want you to take your left hand, and you're here. Now it's going to feel a little bit like it's up, more so than it's here, but it's not going to be tight. And you can actually probably increase it here and get that better, but I still feel a little bit of difference when I'm up here. So what you want to do is feel that it stays loose. And especially this part gets easy. It's easy to keep your shoulder down. When it comes back in, a lot of times people come up like this. You need to make that rotation more under the arm. So I'm out here, and I'm going to rotate more chest and back underneath the armpit instead of on top of the shoulder. Your brain likes to lead with the hand, and it comes out, and the hand pulls that shoulder up, and you see my elbow. My elbow came a little too level. That elbow needs to be down, but it isn't that you bring it in and then put it down. You have to do the rotation correctly so that it stays down. So I'm coming in, and over. And I need to be open here. Let me do that to the side. Just watching my right arm. You can put your hand up here if you want. But how that shoulder needs to stay down, especially here. Coming in. And if that shoulder stays down, the elbow stays down. So that you have a visual way to see it, but it should have a feel to it as well. You're going to feel more connected, more energy, that bow across your back. And when you develop the bow, and as it gets to a greater degree, then your arms move as one, so that the timing gets much easier at that point. But it takes a lot of practice, and brush knee is one of the harder movements. So together, from here, have your claw around it, body shape. Practice that, and then look. Did I keep my elbow down and everything open? And my elbow is not behind me. And that's why we talk a lot about how does it feel. If your elbow is back and you have the body awareness, you will feel that it is not right. And then you don't have to look anymore. So our left arm, from here, and we have stepped. This is where the left arm, it is finished, it's deflect, or it could still be the deflect, I guess. You're pushing out of the way. So it is going to make a rotation. This is not in, out, it's going to come up from here it's going to come in, and then it's going to come out like this. It's going to come across the body as the weight starts shifting, and you're putting the ball of foot down, and as this arm comes in. That is a lot of coordination. So paying attention to what you need to work on here, but that this comes to here as the ball of foot comes down. At this point, with my left hand, all of my foot should be on the floor. It hasn't stopped, it hadn't finished yet. But from here, heel, ball. So I have just a little bit of weight on that. Again, you have to slow the weight down on this one and get it correct. So let's practice that. From here, go all the way to where you get the foot down on the floor. So at this point, I am getting ready to strike. But first I have to finish brushing the knee. So I have brought this foot down, just left hand, and it's about here. My arm has to rotate. And again, this is very similar to this. Shoulder, elbow, wrist. Add your chest if you're there, your chest to back rotates, shoulder rotates, elbow turns back, and then my wrist turns. So this is a little twist into somebody. This has much more power when you get this down. Like this, I can do that pretty fast. I can get a lot of power on that than my hand turning. I just don't have the energy. So the energy comes in that circuit all the way down, and this is a really nice little push here. It's not an empty and down. It has a very definite intent here, rotating all the way down the arm. Sometimes it's easy because there's so much going on a brush knee, but your mind is already over here for the strike, and you kind of make the left side a little empty looking. It's not connected, it's just not, has no intention, doesn't have enough intent to it. It still has intent when it's coming down, but their more intent is on this side. So let's practice this little turn all the way from here. Rounded quad, body shape. Went too far. Let's do it again. Could you feel a little more energy with that? Especially if you have your weight coming. Your weight does not stop. Again, if you're continuous on this weight back and forth, then there's weight coming forward to this point and then here. So there is this continuous movement and this push coming up through the floor. You can add that then to this rotation here. And this is very handy in life. You can use this anytime you're trying to turn something. If you can get the connection with your foot into the turning. So it's a very helpful thing to get. I always talk about it in the arthritis class. When you can do that, you don't use your wrist so much. People tend to clamp down, like you're opening a jar, and you clamp down and your wrist gets tight to get enough energy to turn it, and that's really bad if you have arthritis. Hurts the fingers too. You just see how things get tense. But if I can get this pulling, pushing into that root, letting it come up, and pushing out, I can get a really nice turn without making that wrist tight and uncomfortable or hurting my fingers. You get a lot more energy there too. Or at least I can. Maybe some people got more strength in there than I do. So this has now finished its brush. It is in front of the body and it's going to come back. But it doesn't go in a straight line. All of this has a rotation, a circle to it. It is not here and down. It is around and down, like that. Let me do it from the side. So what we don't want is from here to here to here to here, right? That is blocky. It has a curve. And down. And down. So it doesn't, we don't have sharp edges in Tai Chi. Everything is done in a rotation or a circle. Now the attention or the intent comes back a little bit more to your right arm. And this is where you're going to rotate internally. If you think of bringing that elbow down and out. So again, this is shoulder, elbow, wrist, but it isn't in a straight line. I'm going to rotate at my chest to bring this shoulder in a little bit. Elbow comes down as I curve and come out. So everything is rotating. Again, no straight lines in Tai Chi. Part of the beauty of it is the smoothness, and some people say the softness, but it's got a lot of energy in it. It's not soft in the sense of weak. It is soft in that there's no hard edges, sometimes I like to think. Okay, so as we come in now, we're about here, we start our stride. This is where we introduce the pivot. And the pivot is around your center line. So I want to move my weight forward or my body forward, pivoting along this line. Our brain likes to pull from the shoulders. And when we do that, that was a bit of an example. When we do that, you get a roundness. You lose this extension of your waist. That tailbone is no longer down. So what we want to do, if that is my center line, here's my center line, here's that axis. Through here, we want to push. You can think, there's degrees of this. You can think of it as pushing back through here to come forward. Then in a later point, you can think of it as a dual rotation. this one down, this one forward. Ultimately, it becomes, when you have the waist developed, a down and an up. So I'm going to push down and up. From here, it opens. So if my waist is like this, I'm going to push. I'm going to do this right here along that lower back to get that fit. But again, sometimes we need stages. So you have to start moving from there, and you're not going to be able to do it completely in an extension down and up from the waist. So then you can think of a push back or a rotation like this, and then it develops over time to where you can make that very crisp and get that straight line. And again, we want to be like this. This is harder for me now. Lead from my shoulders. It's soft back here. I lost the energy. I don't have connection to my back leg. And I need that connection to stay there, because the energy, as I push through the back leg to move my weight forward, that is what is going to come in to my arm. And if I don't have this connection, if I lead with my shoulder, I'm not getting that energy all the way out where it needs to go. And this is more of a push off of somebody instead of trying to hit them, necessarily knock the wind out of them. It can be, but I want the momentum of my whole body going into an opponent by pushing through that back foot. And if I lead with the shoulders and I have that disconnect, that momentum doesn't reach my hand. So it's empty. So if I'm here and I push down and I keep that and I make that pivot with that extension up and down, and I can connect through my arms, it's my body going into an opponent. It is not just my hand. This is to kind of push an opponent away from me a little bit. It can be used to knock them out of breath or win them. But the idea is I want my body there. I don't want just my hand going out. And that's a big part of why timing is so critical on this one. If I am here and say I get my weight shifted and I make my pivot and then my hand moves, that is the only energy that goes into someone or an opponent. It has to be whole body, everything arrive together to get into them. So I have to be pushing through this leg. Just as important is a resistance, like we talked about the magnets, feeling that there is something holding me back just a little bit down here. Because if I tried this, and I'm going to be trying to be careful, if I did this and it was only back here, I'm going to go too far. And I've lost energy. The energy didn't have a good connecting point with an opponent. I just kind of went through them, which I know we talk about that sometimes. Imagine a point behind where you're going to hit, but you can go too far and see I lost my body shape. There's no connection to my legs. A lot of times my knee, that's what I was trying to watch, will go beyond that toe, which we don't want to do. So that idea of that resistance, the same holes on a magnet, keeps me from going too far. And it gets really dangerous if you don't have this and you're aiming towards that center and you twist. See what it did to my knee? That's where we can really damage our knee. So I want you to be careful and not put energy into this at the end yet, if you're not there. What I want you to work on is getting that timing so everything finishes together, because if you don't do that correctly and you twist, you are really going to hurt that knee if you put a lot of energy into it. It's going to hurt it some if you don't put a lot. But I want you to be very aware of that and careful of that. It's, again, one of those things true of every posture. It's just so much easier to do it in this one sometimes than others. So the last point then is looking direction. And that is actually pretty simple in brush knee. Your head is going to follow your body. So, and I want you to watch up here. So this, you don't have to think about it. As long as it's extended and turning with your body, it is going to turn. Now I was looking on the DVD. So there's head direction and there's looking direction. We don't talk about them separately, but on this one I noticed Master Young-Jun head stopped here, but his eyes turned. You can see it. His eyeballs turns back. So you are looking towards this hand, but you're not wrenching your neck to get there. So I want you to be very careful that sometimes you get that head too connected, you're going to go like this. And that is a strain. Head is more like this, but the eyes have turned, okay, for that looking direction. I never heard it mentioned or talked about, just something I happened to pick up when I was watching it. So be careful, that you're not turning your neck too far in order to look at the hand. His eyes rolled to look at the hand. So let's put it all together. Just do a few little practice runs. As a group, I'm going to have my back to you just like we would in class. So from white crane, we want to quad round it. We want our body shape, head up, shoulders down, feeling that bow across the back if you're there, trying to keep it there through the whole posture, and relaxing the waist down. Body is a little bit forward here, remember. Brush, knee, left. White crane to brush knee left. White crane to brush knee left. And relax. Now that time, and I did it because it's my habit, and I thought I'd first mention it with you all, I focused on something different each time. I can't remember exactly what, but usually, like the first time I did it, it would be lower body movement, middle body, and then the arms. So it could be connecting middle and lower, connecting middle and upper. You can't do everything that we discussed all at once. So that there's too many details, there's too much movement. Some of them it's a little easier. The next one, hamstrings, the glute. It has a lot of energy to it, but the movement isn't as complicated. So you pick stuff. And sometimes when I'm doing the whole form, I will pick something for section 1. I will want to work on specifically hands, or setting the wrist, or footwork, making sure I've got the bow stance. And if you're doing single posture work, same idea. Tai Chi walk. First 2 or 3, you got a long space. First 2 or 3 brush knees either side. You'll focus on one thing, and then you'll change it up the next 3. So I highly recommend that for practice. And again, trying to work from the bottom up. Get your lower body first. So that'll take care of it for this week. And I hope everybody got the email from Jeff. We don't have a definite date yet, but hopefully it's not too far away. Everybody take care, and I hope to see you in person soon.